The Great Hall on Nexus Prime stretched higher than any building on Earth. Crystal walls reflected light from 7 different suns, casting rainbow patterns across the floor where Captain Jake Morrison stood. He wore his best uniform, the dark, blue fabric pressed and clean, but he felt small in this place built by aliens who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Ambassador Lisa Warren stood beside him, her face calm but her hands slightly shaking. She had spent 10 years learning the languages and customs of the Galactic Council. Today, all that work might mean nothing. Behind them sat Dr. Alan Rodriguez, taking notes on his tablet. He studied alien behavior the way other people studied animals. His research had warned them this day might come, but nobody wanted to listen. Humans were too different, he had said. Too fast, too aggressive, too willing to fight. The 7 council members sat on tall chairs that floated in the air. Each one represented a different species that had founded the galactic government. The Zephyrians looked like tall, thin people covered in silver fur. The Meridians had blue skin and large black eyes. The Altarians were small and moved like flowing water. Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrians spoke first. His voice echoed through the hall, translated into English by machines built into the walls. The species called humans has been judged by this council. We have watched your actions for 50 years since you joined our society. Morrison remembered the day humans first made contact with the galaxy. Earth had been so excited to meet other, intelligent life. They thought it meant peace and friendship among the stars. They had no idea it would lead to this moment. You build colonies too fast, the Chancellor continued. Where other species take 200 years to settle one world, you terraform 12 and 20 years. You change planets to suit your needs, instead of adapting to them. This shows disrespect for the natural order. Warren had prepared arguments for this accusation. Human terraforming helped planets support more life, not less. They had turned dead rocks into gardens where millions of beings could live. But the Council did not want to hear explanations. You fight when others seek peace, said the Meridian representative, her blue face showing disgust. 3 times Council worlds called for help against pirates and raiders. 3 times human fleets arrived with weapons and destroyed the attackers. Violence should be the last choice, not the first. Morrison bit his tongue. Those pirate attacks had killed thousands of innocent people. Human ships had saved lives by acting quickly. But the Council preferred long discussions and peaceful negotiations, even when people were dying. The Altarian member spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. Humans refuse to follow the non-interference protocols. You contact primitive species and share technology with them. You ignore the borders we established to protect developing civilizations. Rodriguez had written reports about those protocols. They left entire species trapped on dying worlds because helping them would break ancient rules. Humans had secretly given medical supplies and farming knowledge to 12 different primitive species. The Council called it interference. Humans called it saving lives. The evidence is clear, Chancellor Vextar announced. Humans cannot coexist with civilized galactic society. You expand too quickly, fight too often, and ignore our laws. This council votes to expel humanity from galactic space. The vote was quick. 7 species, 7 votes against humanity. Not one voice spoke in their defense. Warren found her voice at last. Chancellor, our species has contributed much to the galaxy. Human medical research has saved millions of lives. Our engineering has improved trade routes and communication systems. We have been loyal members of this council for 50 years. Loyalty that comes with constant problems is not true loyalty, the Chancellor replied. You will have 1 Earth year to remove all human presence from council space. Every human colony, space station, and trading post must be abandoned. Any human found in our territory after that time will be treated as an enemy. Morrison felt anger burning in his chest. 47 human colonies would have to be evacuated. 12 space stations that employed hundreds of thousands of people. Trade agreements that fed entire worlds. All of it gone because humans were too successful, too willing to help others, too ready to fight for what was right. Dr. Rodriguez closed his tablet and stood up. His research had been correct. The Council feared human potential more than they valued human contributions. They saw Earth's children as a threat to their careful, slow way of doing things. Admiral Kevin Sharp received the news aboard his flagship, the New Horizon, orbiting Earth. His weathered face showed no surprise. He had served in 3 wars defending Council worlds and knew how the aliens really felt about humans. They were happy to use human courage when they needed protection, but they did not want humans as equals. Sharp immediately began planning the largest evacuation in human history. Every ship in the Earth Defense Fleet would be needed. Cargo vessels, passenger liners, even old mining ships would carry people and supplies to the edge of known space. As the human delegation left Nexus Prime, Warren turned to Morrison. They think sending us away will solve their problems. They think exile will make us weak and scattered. Morrison nodded, watching the alien city disappear behind them. They have no idea what humans can do when we're fighting for survival instead of following their rules. Rodriguez was already planning research stations beyond Council space. Out there, humans could develop technology without alien restrictions. They could explore dangerous regions the Council was too afraid to enter. They could build something new, something better. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. During that time, President Marcus Thompson called emergency sessions of the United Earth Assembly. Every human leader in the galaxy received the same message: prepare for exodus. Sharp looked at the star charts one more time. Beyond Council space lay vast regions that had never been explored. The aliens thought those areas were too dangerous or too poor to be worth their time. But humans had turned barren moons into thriving colonies before. They had survived ice ages and nuclear wars and plagues that should have destroyed them. The Council had made a mistake. They thought they were punishing humanity by forcing them into exile. Instead, they were freeing humans from rules and restrictions that had held them back for 50 years. Out in the unknown darkness between the stars, Earth's children would have room to grow. Morrison smiled as Earth appeared on the view screen. The Council would learn too late that exiling humanity was like throwing seeds into fertile soil. Something much stronger would grow from this decision, something the galaxy had never seen before. The age of human empire was about to begin. The evacuation began 3 days after the delegation returned from Nexus Prime. Lieutenant Commander Amy Peterson stood in Earth's orbital command center, watching thousands of dots move across her screens. Each dot represented a ship carrying human families away from their homes forever. President Marcus Thompson had given his final speech to the United Earth Assembly the night before. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every human world. Many were crying as he spoke about leaving everything behind, but his words were strong and clear. "We are not running away," Thompson said, his voice carrying to billions of humans across the galaxy. "We are moving toward a future where no alien government can tell us how to live. They fear what we might become, so we will show them exactly what that looks like." The president's words gave people hope, but the reality was harsh. 47 colonies had to be abandoned. Some had been human homes for 3 generations. Families packed what they could carry and left the rest behind. Children asked why they had to leave their friends and pets. Parents had no good answers to give. Dr. Elena Foster worked around the clock in her laboratory, studying star charts of unexplored space. The Council had marked dozens of systems as unsuitable for colonization. Foster knew this usually meant the planets were too hot, too cold, or too dangerous for the comfort-loving alien species. But humans had survived in Earth's deserts and Arctic regions. They could adapt to almost anything. Her surveys found 17 systems that looked promising. The planets would need work, but humans were good at changing hostile worlds into livable ones. One system in particular caught her attention. The 3rd planet was covered in volcanic activity, but its atmosphere was almost perfect for human breathing. The Council had marked it as too unstable and ignored it completely. Admiral Sharp divided the evacuation into 3 phases. The first wave carried essential personnel and equipment to establish basic camps beyond Council space. The second wave moved the bulk of the population. The third wave would be the military, staying behind to protect the evacuation until the last moment. Captain Susan Davis commanded the rearguard fleet. Her destroyers patrolled the borders of Council space, watching for alien enforcement ships. The Council had given humans 1 year to leave, but Davis did not trust them to honor that promise. Twice her sensors detected Zephyrian patrol ships moving toward human colonies. Both times, her fleet took aggressive positions and forced the aliens to back down. Chief Engineer Ryan Clark had perhaps the hardest job of all. He had to modify hundreds of civilian ships for long-range travel to unknown space. Cargo haulers became passenger transports. Mining ships were fitted with extra life support systems. Even old research vessels were pressed into service carrying families and their possessions. Clark worked 18-hour days in the shipyards above Earth. His teams installed new engines, bigger fuel tanks, and stronger radiation shielding. Every ship had to be ready for a journey longer than any civilian vessel had ever attempted. There would be no rescue if something went wrong in the dark space between stars. The most important person in the evacuation was someone most humans had never heard of. Dr. Nicole Martinez worked in secret aboard the research ship Discovery, developing technology the Council had banned for centuries. Faster-than-light communication had always been restricted to government use only. Martinez was building quantum transmitters that would let humans coordinate across vast distances. Her lab was hidden deep inside the Discovery's hull. Even her research assistants did not know the full scope of her project. The quantum entanglement arrays she built were smaller and more powerful than anything the Council used. If her calculations were correct, humans would be able to send messages instantly across thousands of light years. By the 4th month of evacuation, the first wave had established a base camp in the system Foster had identified. The volcanic planet was as dangerous as the Council thought, but human engineers loved challenges. Within weeks, they had built geothermal power plants that turned the planet's instability into unlimited energy. The settlement grew faster than anyone expected. Humans called the world New Terra, and it became the rallying point for the entire exodus. Governor Rachel Stone, formerly the mayor of Mars Colony, took charge of the expanding city. She had experience managing hostile environments and diverse populations. Stone established strict communication protocols to keep New Terra hidden from Council sensors. All messages were routed through Martinez's quantum network, which the aliens could not detect or intercept. As far as the Council knew, the exiled humans had vanished into the cosmic dark. The second wave of evacuation brought nearly 100 million people to the new territories. They spread across 12 different worlds, each group adapting to local conditions with typical human stubbornness. Ice worlds became mining centers. Desert planets grew food in underground farms. Gas giant moons provided fuel and manufacturing facilities. Admiral Sharp moved his headquarters to New Terra during the 6th month. Standing on the observation deck of his new command center, he watched construction crews work day and night. The humans were not just surviving in exile, they were thriving. The final phase began in the 8th month. Captain Davis and her rearguard fleet began their own withdrawal, protecting the last civilians as they left Council space forever. Several times, alien patrol ships tried to follow the human fleet into unexplored territory. Each time, Davis's destroyers convinced them to turn. Back at the last human ship crossed into exile on a cold morning in December. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral, piloted his explorer vessel past the final Council boundary marker. Behind him, the galaxy humans had called home for 50 years grew smaller and dimmer. Ahead lay the unknown. But Morrison was not afraid. In his cargo hold, he carried seeds from Earth, genetic samples from 1,000 species, and data crystals containing all of human knowledge. The Council thought they were driving humanity into darkness. They had no idea they were actually setting them free. As his ship reached New Terra, Morrison saw something that made him smile. The volcanic world was covered in lights from dozens of cities. Ships moved between planets like busy insects. In less than a year, humans had built more infrastructure than most alien species managed in centuries. Dr. Rodriguez transmitted his final report to Morrison as the exodus officially ended. Human population in exile, 150 million. Number of worlds settled, 23. Military vessels, over 3,000. Industrial capacity, growing by 20% each month. The Council had expected humanity to collapse in exile, scattered and helpless without alien support. Instead, they had created the fastest-growing civilization in galactic history. The seeds of empire had been planted in fertile soil. 5 years had passed since the last human ship left Council space. New Terra had grown from a refugee camp into a city that housed 2 million people. Governor Rachel Stone stood on her office balcony, watching the morning shift change at the geothermal plants. Steam rose from dozens of volcanic vents that now powered the entire planet. The city looked nothing like the alien architecture humans had lived with for 50 years. Human buildings were practical and strong, built to withstand earthquakes and volcanic ash. Streets followed efficient patterns instead of the flowing curves aliens preferred. Everything was designed for rapid expansion and easy modification. Dr. Martinez's quantum communication network had changed everything. Messages that once took months to travel between distant colonies now arrived in seconds. Fleet Admiral Sharp could coordinate military operations across 37 star systems as easily as commanding a single ship. The network gave humans an advantage no other species in the galaxy possessed. In the military district, Colonel Brandon Lee trained the newest recruits of the Human Expeditionary Force. These soldiers were different from the peacekeepers humans had contributed to Council missions. Lee's troops were hardened fighters, trained for rapid planetary assault and long-term survival in hostile environments. Lee watched his soldiers practice combat maneuvers in New Terra's volcanic caves. The heat and toxic gases would kill most alien species within minutes, but humans adapted. They learned to fight in conditions that would never occur to the comfort-loving Council races. Every disadvantage became a training opportunity. The orbital shipyards above New Terra worked 24 hours a day under Chief Naval Architect Caroline White. Her design teams had created vessels that combined salvaged alien technology with uniquely human innovations. The new ships were faster than Zephyrian cruisers, tougher than Meridian battleships, and more heavily armed than anything in Council fleets. White's latest design, the Defiant-class destroyer, could accelerate to combat speed twice as fast as comparable alien vessels. Human crews could withstand the acceleration forces that would crush other species. The ships were built for aggressive tactics that alien commanders would consider suicidal. Dr. Rodriguez had established research facilities on 12 different worlds, each one focused on understanding alien weaknesses. His team studied captured Council technology and biological samples from every known species. They discovered that human reflexes were faster, human endurance was greater, and human adaptability far exceeded galactic norms. The research was not just academic. Rodriguez developed weapons specifically designed to exploit alien vulnerabilities. Sonic frequencies that disrupted Zephyrian nervous systems, light patterns that caused seizures in Meridian brains, chemical compounds that were harmless to humans but toxic to other species. Ambassador Warren had taken a new role as Director of External Affairs. Working from a hidden base in the outer system, she maintained secret contact with non-Council species throughout the galaxy. Many smaller civilizations were tired of Council rule and interested in alternatives. The Ketheri had been enslaved by the Zephyrians for 3 centuries. The Rimwall Coalition paid crushing taxes to fund Council bureaucracy. The Free Traders Guild faced constant harassment from alien patrol ships. Warren offered these groups something the Council never had: protection with no strings attached. Admiral Morrison commanded the exploration fleets that pushed deeper into unknown space. His ships had mapped over 300 star systems that Council scientists had never detected. Many contained resources the aliens needed but were too afraid to claim. Humans had no such fears. Morrison's explorers found worlds rich in rare metals, gas giants perfect for fuel production, and asteroid fields containing enough materials to build 1,000 fleets. The Council had focused on inhabitable planets and ignored everything else. Humans saw opportunity everywhere. The human population had exploded during the 5 years of exile. Better nutrition, advanced medical care, and the freedom to have large families had increased birth rates dramatically. The exile territories now held over 200 million humans, spread across 41 worlds and 63 space stations. Captain Michel Garcia commanded the newest addition to the human fleet, the heavy carrier Sovereign. The ship was larger than any vessel the Council had ever built, with fighter bays that could launch 500 attack craft simultaneously. Garcia's pilots trained constantly, developing combat techniques that had never been tried before. The fighter squadrons practiced swarm attacks that overwhelmed enemy defenses through sheer numbers and speed. They learned to fight in asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and the vacuum between stars. Human pilots could handle forces and conditions that would incapacitate alien crews. Governor Stone received weekly reports from every human settlement. Industrial production had increased by 800% since the Exodus began. Military production was growing even faster. Shipyards that had once built one vessel per month now launched 3 per week. The social changes were just as dramatic. Without Council restrictions, human scientists were free to pursue dangerous research. Engineers built massive projects that aliens would consider too risky. Terraforming operations proceeded at speeds that shocked even human planners. Dr. Foster had perfected techniques for rapid planetary modification. Atmospheric processors could make a world breathable in months instead of decades. Genetic engineering created crops that grew in any environment. Weather control systems tamed hostile climates with brutal efficiency. But the most important development was invisible to outside observers. Humans were learning to think like an empire. The scattered refugees who had fled Council space were becoming a unified civilization with clear goals and unlimited ambition. Fleet Admiral Sharp stood in his command center, studying reports from across human space. Military strength was approaching levels that could challenge any Council fleet. Industrial capacity exceeded the output of most alien homeworlds. Scientific advancement was proceeding without the ethical restrictions that limited other species. The Quantum Communication Network carried Sharp's orders to every corner of human territory. Fleet movements, research priorities, industrial targets, and diplomatic contacts were all coordinated from New Terra. The humans had built something the galaxy had never seen, a civilization that could think and act as one unit. Sharp smiled as he read the latest intelligence reports from Warren's agents in Council space. Alien governments were growing concerned about the absence of human activity. Some Council members wondered if the exile had been too harsh. Others worried about what humans might be planning in the dark regions beyond their borders. They were right to worry. The refugees were gone. In their place stood an empire that was stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than anything the galaxy had faced before. The Council's greatest fear had become reality, and they had created it themselves. The Altarian research vessel Gentle Current was looking for gravitational anomalies when it stumbled into human territory. Captain Veltar had been studying strange readings from what the Council charts marked as empty space. His ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, expecting to find nothing but cosmic dust and background radiation. Instead, he found himself surrounded by 12 human warships that seemed to appear from nowhere. Captain Michel Garcia stood on the bridge of the destroyer Defiant, watching the alien vessel on her main screen. The Altarian ship was beautiful in the flowing, organic way that characterized their technology. It also looked fragile compared to the angular, armored human vessels that had materialized around it. Garcia opened a communication channel, speaking in the Altarian language she had learned during her Council service years before. Altarian, vessel, you have entered human territorial space. State your purpose and intentions. The response came back filled with confusion and fear. Captain Veltar had been told that humans were exiled beyond the edge of known space. According to Council records, they should be scattered refugees struggling to survive on barren worlds. The advanced warships surrounding his vessel suggested a very different reality. Dr. Robert Kim arrived on the Defiant within an hour, transferring from the command ship Sovereign. As humanity's chief diplomatic officer, Kim had prepared for this moment for 3 years. He knew that eventually someone would discover the human empire by accident. The question was how to manage that discovery. Kim met with Captain Veltar in the Defiant's conference room. The Altarian was a small, graceful being who moved like water flowing over stones. His large eyes showed the intelligence that made his species excellent scientists and researchers. They also showed the shock of finding humans not only alive, but obviously thriving. "Captain Veltar," Kim began, "we welcome you to human space. It has been many years since we had contact with Council species. How are things in the old territories?" Veltar struggled to process what he was seeing. The human ship was clearly more advanced than anything in the Council fleet. The crew moved with military precision that suggested extensive combat experience. The technology visible in the conference room appeared to be decades ahead of Council standards. "I do not understand," Veltar said in his melodic voice. "The Council was told that humans accepted exile peacefully. You were supposed to be scattered across primitive worlds, struggling to build basic settlements. This ship, this fleet, suggests something very different." Kim smiled. The Council was told what they wanted to hear. Humans have indeed been building settlements, but perhaps not the kind they imagined. "Would you like to see what we have accomplished?" Over the next 3 days, Kim gave Veltar a carefully planned tour of human achievements. They visited New Terra's massive cities, where millions of humans lived and worked in conditions that rivaled the best Council worlds. They toured shipyards where vessels larger than Council dreadnoughts rolled off production lines every week. The Altarian scientist was amazed by the quantum communication arrays that allowed instant contact across the human empire. Such technology was theoretically possible, but had never been successfully implemented by any Council species. Humans had not only built it, but deployed it on a scale that encompassed dozens of star systems. Veltar met with Dr. Foster at a terraforming facility on New Terra's second moon. The human scientist showed him how atmospheric processors could transform hostile worlds into garden planets in a matter of months. The Altarians took centuries to achieve similar results when they attempted such projects at all. "How is this possible?" Veltar asked, watching massive machines reshape an entire moon's atmosphere. "The Council's best estimates suggested you lacked the resources and technology for such rapid development." Foster laughed. "The Council underestimated human ingenuity. When you force us to survive on our own, we become very good at making impossible things work. Exile was the best thing that ever happened to humanity." The most shocking revelation came when Kim showed Veltar the scope of human territory. Star charts displayed 41 colonized worlds, 63 space stations, and mining operations in over 300 systems. The human empire was larger than most Council member territories and growing faster than any civilization in recorded galactic history. Admiral Morrison arrived on the third day to discuss military matters. The Altarian was disturbed to learn that humans now commanded over 5,000 combat vessels, more than the entire Council fleet combined. Human soldiers trained for combat scenarios that would terrify alien commanders. "Why do you need such military strength?" Veltar asked during a tour of the Sovereign's fighter bays. "The Council poses no threat to civilizations outside our territory." Morrison's expression grew serious. "The Council poses no threat because they lack the ability to project power beyond their established borders. They fear change, avoid risks, and prefer negotiation to action. Those are not the characteristics of a government that will survive long-term galactic challenges." The implications were clear. Humans had not simply survived exile. They had used their freedom to build a civilization that surpassed the Council in every meaningful way. They were stronger, more advanced, more unified, and more ambitious than any species the galaxy had seen. Fleet Admiral Sharp authorized Kim to reveal select information about human plans. The Empire was not content to remain hidden in the outer darkness. Humans intended to return to galactic affairs as a major power, with or without Council approval. Veltar returned to Council space with reports that sent shockwaves through the galactic government. Emergency sessions were called on Nexus Prime. Intelligence services that had ignored the exiled humans for 6 years suddenly demanded detailed information about their activities. Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrians was furious. "How did we miss this development? Our sensors show no activity in the sectors where humans were exiled. How did they build an empire without our knowledge? The answer was simple but terrifying. Human technology had advanced beyond Council detection capabilities. Their quantum communication networks were invisible to alien sensors. Their ships used materials and energy signatures that Council computers did not recognize. The humans had become ghosts in the cosmic dark. The Council's response was swift but poorly coordinated. Some members called for immediate military action to contain the IDO human threat before it grew larger. Others argued for diplomatic engagement, hoping to reach some accommodation with the Exile Empire. The debate became academic when 3 minor species requested human protection from Council oppression. The Cathari, who had suffered under Zephyrian rule for centuries, formally asked for military assistance in reclaiming their homeworld. The Rimwall Coalition offered exclusive mining rights in exchange for defense agreements. The Free Traders Guild proposed economic partnerships that would give humans access to markets throughout known space. General Patricia Hayes commanded the first official human diplomatic mission to Council space since the exile. Her squadron of advanced frigates escorted Ambassador Warren back to Nexus Prime, where she would present humanity's terms for renewed galactic engagement. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. The Council faced a human empire that was not asking for readmission to galactic society. Instead, they were offering to restructure it completely. The species that had been exiled for being too aggressive and ambitious had returned as the dominant force in their region of space. Warren's message was simple and direct. Humans would accept nothing less than recognition as an independent sovereign power. They demanded reparations for the forced exile and the establishment of formal diplomatic relations. Most importantly, they offered protection to any species that felt threatened by the current galactic order. The Council had 6 years to consider the consequences of their decision to exile humanity. Now they would learn whether those consequences could be managed or controlled. The war began when Zephyrian Admiral Kethvor made the worst decision in galactic history. He ordered his fleet to attack a human convoy carrying families and medical supplies to the Rimwall Coalition. The transport ship New Hope was destroyed, along with its escort, killing 3,000 civilians who had been bringing medicine to treat a plague outbreak. Fleet Admiral Sharp received the report 12 minutes after the attack. His face showed no emotion as he read the details, but every human commander in the network felt the change in his orders. The time for diplomacy had ended. Captain Daniel Wright led the first retaliatory strike against the Zephyrian fortress world of Kethmore. His assault force included 200 human vessels and a full marine division trained for planetary combat. The attack came exactly 72 hours after the New Hope massacre, hitting the Zephyrian fleet while they were still celebrating their victory. Wright's Marines landed on Kethmore using tactics the aliens had never seen before. Human soldiers wore armor that let them fight in environments that would kill most species. They moved faster, hit harder, and adapted to changing conditions with a speed that overwhelmed the fortress defenders. The Zephyrian garrison had been trained for ceremonial duties and dealing with peaceful protesters. They had never faced an enemy that used explosives to blast through fortified walls or soldiers who could fight hand-to-hand in toxic atmospheres. The fortress fell in 18 hours. Admiral Kethvor was captured along with his entire staff. Wright's forces also seized 2 advanced Zephyrian warships and a complete database of Council military plans. The intelligence would prove invaluable in the larger conflict that everyone knew was coming. The Council's attempts to coordinate a united response failed immediately. Chancellor Vextar demanded that all member species contribute fleets to crush the human uprising. The Meridians refused, saying they had no interest in fighting a war they had not started. The Altarians declared neutrality and withdrew their ships from Council space. 3 minor species took advantage of the chaos to begin their own rebellions. The Cathari attacked Zephyrian occupation forces on their homeworld. The Rimwall Coalition seized control of major trade routes. The Free Traders Guild disrupted Council supply lines across 3 sectors. Dr. Foster's terraforming technology proved decisive in the early stages of the war. Human engineers converted 12 barren worlds into fortress bases in less than 4 months. Each base could support a full fleet and serve as a staging area for further expansion. The speed of human construction left Council forces constantly reacting to new threats. General Hayes commanded the liberation of the Cathari homeworld, leading a combined force of human and Cathari troops against entrenched Zephyrian positions. The aliens had occupied the planet for 3 centuries and considered it permanently pacified. They learned otherwise when human orbital bombardment destroyed their command centers in the first hour of the assault. The Cathari fought with desperate fury, using knowledge of their own world to guide human forces through mountain passes and underground tunnels. Zephyrian troops trained for occupation duties collapsed when faced with coordinated resistance supported by human military technology. Captain Wright, now promoted to admiral, led the campaign that secured the Rimwall Coalition territories. His fleet used human speed and firepower to destroy Council patrol bases before reinforcements could arrive. Coalition mining ships, protected by human escorts, began extracting resources that had been under Council control for decades. The decisive moment came when Fleet Admiral Sharp ordered a direct assault on Nexus Prime itself. The Council's capital world had never been attacked in its 3,000-year history. Its defenses were designed to intimidate visitors, not repel serious military threats. Sharp commanded a combined fleet of over 400 vessels, including ships from every species allied with humanity. The human carriers Sovereign and Liberty Bell led the attack, launching fighters that swarmed through Council defensive positions like angry insects. The Battle of Nexus Prime lasted 3 days and became the largest space engagement in galactic history. Human tactics emphasized speed, coordination, and overwhelming firepower applied at critical points. Council forces tried to fight a traditional defensive battle, but found themselves constantly outmaneuvered by enemies who communicated instantly and adapted to changing conditions. Admiral Morrison commanded the human fleet's right wing, breaking through Meridian defensive lines that had been considered impregnable. His ships used human endurance advantages to maintain maximum combat speed for hours longer than alien crews could manage. When Meridian ships slowed to rest their exhausted crews, Morrison's forces struck with devastating effect. The end came when Captain Garcia led a squadron of destroyers through the planet's defense grid to attack the Council's command centers directly. Her ships bombarded government buildings with surgical precision, avoiding civilian areas but making it clear that nowhere was safe from human attack. Chancellor Vextar surrendered when Garcia's destroyers took position above the Council chamber itself. The sight of human warships hovering over the galactic capital was broadcast throughout known space, marking the end of the old order. President Thompson traveled to Nexus Prime to address the defeated Council from the same chamber where humanity had been sentenced to exile. The irony was not lost on anyone present. The species that had been exiled for being too dangerous now held the fate of their former judges in their hands. Thompson's terms were surprisingly generous. There would be no executions, no territorial seizures of Council homeworlds, and no revenge for the years of exile. Instead, the entire structure of galactic government would be rebuilt from the ground up. The new Galactic Federation included representatives from 17 species, with humans holding significant but not dominant influence. Democratic principles replaced the old oligarchy. Merit-based advancement replaced hereditary positions. Economic cooperation replaced tribute systems. Admiral Morrison became the Federation's first Supreme Fleet Commander, responsible for coordinating defense and exploration activities across member territories. Ambassador Warren took the position of Federation Chancellor, overseeing diplomatic relations and internal governance. Dr. Martinez's quantum communication networks were extended throughout Federation space, creating unprecedented coordination between member species. The rigid bureaucracy that had characterized Council rule was replaced by efficient systems that could respond to crises in real time. The former Council species found themselves adapting to a new reality, where their ancient privileges no longer existed. The Zephyrians lost their military dominance. The Meridians discovered that their peaceful nature was valued but not considered superior to other approaches. The Altarians found their scientific knowledge welcomed, but not automatically granted authority. Within 5 years of the war's end, the Galactic Federation had expanded to include 32 species. Trade increased by 600%. Scientific advancement accelerated as human research methods spread to other civilizations. Territorial expansion reached regions of space that had never been explored. Dr. Rodriguez established the Federation Science Council, bringing together researchers from every member species to tackle challenges that no single civilization could handle alone. Human aggression and alien caution balanced each other, creating hybrid approaches that were more effective than either extreme. The greatest change was psychological. Species that had lived under council rule for millennia learned to think beyond the careful limitations imposed by their former government. Human ambition became contagious, inspiring aliens to attempt projects they would never have considered before. Fleet Admiral Sharp stood on the observation deck of his new headquarters, watching construction crews build the Federation's first deep space exploration base. The facility would support missions into regions beyond any known civilization's territory. It represented everything the old council had feared about human influence. Sharp smiled as he thought about the council's decision to exile humanity 10 years earlier. They had been terrified of human potential and tried to contain it by forcing Earth's children into the cosmic wilderness. Instead, they had created exactly what they feared most: a galactic empire guided by human principles but serving the interests of all civilized species. The irony was perfect. By exiling humanity to prevent them from changing galactic civilization, the Council had guaranteed that humans would return with the power to reshape it completely. The seeds of empire, thrown into the darkness between stars, had grown into something magnificent and terrible that would dominate the galaxy for centuries to come.